Hey, this is Justin Nicholson Home Inspections. I wanted to spend a few minutes with you talking about how to prepare a home for an inspection. This is kind of a video version of a document that we have. You'll see links below that'll bring you to those documents. This information is for everybody that's involved in the transaction, if this is a typical inspection. It is not just for the client buyer of the home and their representative. It's for the seller and the seller's agent as well. There's things that we need cooperation on to ensure that the inspection is thorough, goes smoothly, and the like. So we appreciate everybody taking the time to review this information and to implement the things that we specify. Let's start first with what a home inspection is. I could go on about this, but I'm going to be pretty brief. It's a visually based, non-invasive examination of the exposed and readily accessible areas of the property as they exist on the date and time of the inspection. More could be said, but for what we're going to go into, it's the visually based, non-invasive part that we want to focus on. Okay, so when we're at an inspection, we do not move or disturb personal belongings of any kind, okay? So there's certain high profile areas on a home that we need to have prepared before we get to the property, okay? Certain things that we need to have done before we arrive on site. Not after we get there, before we arrive. Generally speaking, that's going to take the cooperation of the selling party / the occupant of the home. Or if this inspection is for you and you already live in the home, then obviously a lot of that's going to be applicable to you in particular. So some things that we need to have done before we get to the property. Number one, electrical panels. Electrical panels should always be unblocked anyway. If they're not, they need to be unblocked. And in our experience, what people understand by an unblocked electrical panel isn't always accurate. So we need to be able to get to each of the screws that are on the panel cover and be able to remove them. That's number one, okay? If the panel cover door can be opened, that's not gonna help us if the panel screws are blocked. So the panel screws need to be completely unblocked. If the cover is caulked or painted in place, that actually needs to be scored and made so that it can be easily removed and opened ahead of time. But the clearance requirements are a little bit more specific than just simply being able to get to the panel. Proper clearances are defined as follows. One, we need 3 feet of clear space in front of the panel, including the area below the panel. So if you can reach over a bunch of stuff to get to the panel, that's still a blocked panel. We need to have the stuff in front of it removed. We need a clearance of 3 feet. That's the technical requirement, okay? So if anything is on the floor in front of the panel, that needs to be removed. We need 15 inches of clearance to each side of the middle of the panel, all right? So that needs to be handled as well. And we need a clearance of 6 feet headroom. Of all of those things, the 6 feet headroom is the least important. The main thing is we need to be able to remove the panel cover, make sure none of the screws are blocked, and we need to be able to walk all the way up to the panel, not reach over any personal belongings. We don't want to trip over somebody's personal belongings and then accidentally brace ourselves in the electrical panel. That would be shocking. Right. So next, water heater and furnace. They're often in the garage and they're often blocked. We need anything that's on the floor stored on or around the water heater or the furnace. We need those things cleared away. Water heaters oftentimes will have insulation blankets, insulation put around them. A few things. One, it's redundant. The water heater should already have insulation inside of it. You don't need an insulation blanket on top of it. Two, an insulation blanket actually voids most manufacturer warranties. Most people don't know that. And 3, if the insulation blanket is present on the panel, on the water heater, we can't look at the water heater. So we need the water heater's insulation blanket, if it's present, that needs to be removed entirely, okay? Appreciate that. Garages. This is the area of the home that has not only a lot of components in it, but it's often the one that's stuffed with the most amount of things. We're not gonna ask people to remove all the stuff in the garage, but we've talked about the electrical panel, the water heater, and the furnace. They're often things that are in the garage. Those need to be unblocked. We also need to make sure that we can get to each or any of the garage doors and have that area in front of it completely unimpeded at all, completely. We need to get to that. So please make sure that the garage door itself is also unblocked, all right? That leads us to GFCI outlets, okay? So a GFCI outlet, those are the outlets that have, talking to a typical homeowner here, they got the test and the reset buttons on them, okay? You'll see them in bathrooms, kitchens, oftentimes you'll see them in garages, etc. We're required by our standards of practice to trip all GFCI outlets that are readily accessible, as well as any circuits that would typically be protected by a GFCI outlet. Give you an example. Usually, most homes, the bathrooms won't have a GFCI outlet in all of them. They're going to have a GFCI outlet in one of them, and then the other bathrooms downstream from it are protected by that GFI outlet. Another example would be the outside outlets are often downstream from a GFCI outlet that's in the garage. Now we're required to test those unless they're blocked. And oftentimes we'll test them, but where the GFCI outlet actually is, say in the garage, it's blocked there. And if we can't get to it, we can't reset it. Now you have a situation where there's no electricity on that circuit. Now let's say that that circuit has a freezer or a fridge attached to it. It's happened before. We will not take responsibility for meat or food that goes bad because we couldn't get to a GFCI outlet that was tripped. We're required by our standards of practice to trip them, to trip those circuits, okay? So we ask that all GFCI outlets in the home and in the garage, etc., be unblocked so that we can reset those, all right? Let's talk about crawl spaces. So with crawl space, we're talking about under the house, all right? Your accesses to those are typically gonna be found in bedroom closets, closets under stairs, sometimes on the outside of the home, in particular if it's an older home. Wherever they are, they need to be completely unblocked. There shouldn't be storage on top of them or anything like that. We need to be able to get to them and open the hatch easily and put it back. So if there's anything on top of it or blocking access to it in any way, those things need to be removed. Now let's talk about attic spaces up above, okay? Some homes only have one, some homes have more than one. Wherever they are, they need to be unblocked. Now this gets a little bit tricky because a lot of times people will look at the attic access, they'll see it, and they'll say, well, it isn't blocked. They need to look down, okay? I've gone into garages many times where the attic access is right there, but there's a car below it, all right? Can't set my ladder up on top of a car. No, that's not gonna make anyone happy, all right? You'll go, say, into a master bedroom closet, and the attic access is right there, but below it on the floor where I wanna set up a ladder, there's a bunch of shoes, there's boxes, there's storage. Directly below the access, there's a bunch of clothing and boxes and the like. Anything that is preventing us from being able to set up a ladder and easily gain access into the attic is blocking the attic. So that could be shoes, boxes, shelving, storage, clothing racks, etc. Anything like that needs to be unblocked. If you choose, or if a seller, an occupant chooses to leave it in place, they are risking the chance that we may not feel comfortable setting up our ladder and it would be considered a blocked attic. They're also risking this. When we open up an attic access, it's quite possible that there are going to be insulation or whatnot that falls out, okay? We don't want to ruin anyone's stuff. So we're asking sellers and occupants ahead of time, if you choose to leave anything in that area below or around the attic access, you should cover it with a sheet or a drop cloth. We're asking that you do that ahead of time, okay? So anything that's in the way of an attic access needs to be removed. Appliances, tubs, and showers. And it sounds strange, but there are people that do store food or the like inside of ovens, even inside of dishwashers. I've seen this before. Anything that's inside of or on top of an oven or a dishwasher or a stove or anything like that needs to be removed. Pots and pans, little Debbie's, food, whatever it is, it needs to come out so that we can look inside of those things, test them and operate them and not be impeded in any way. Strangely enough, there are people that store things in tubs and showers. As far as that goes, sinks as well. So we've seen cat boxes inside of tubs. We've seen showers converted into closet space. All that stuff needs to be removed before we get to the property, all right? Sinks, like a laundry room sink or a wash sink in a garage, often will be stuffed with items. All of that has to be removed before we get to the property, okay? Utilities, again, we inspect the home as it presents itself to us at the date and time of the inspection. We do not prepare the home for the inspection. We inspect the home, period, all right? So all of the utilities in the home need to be on and functional at all locations prior to our arrival at the property, okay? If it's a vacant home, the utilities need to be on. If they're off, we just inspect it as is, and we've done it hundreds and hundreds of times. We've inspected houses with no water. We've inspected with houses with no gas. We've inspected houses with no electricity. We've inspected houses with no gas, electricity, or water. How can you do that? We just do what we can do, and that's it. But we want the best for our clients. So take the utility thing seriously. This does include, say you have an occupied home and you have a gas fireplace that's been off for ages. It has a pilot light that needs to be lit. That needs to be lit before we arrive at the property, okay? So all utilities on and functional at all locations inside of the home prior to our arrival. That's what we're looking for, okay? The last thing that I wanted to mention is, sellers of properties should have, at least for the buyer, available any receipts, warranty information, permit paperwork, and the like. Just like you would, say, if you were selling a car, a lot of times people want to have any of those service records, anything like that available. Same thing with a house. So if you've had electrical work done and it required a permit, have that permit information available. If you hired an electrician, have that information available. If you put on a new roof, have the warranty information and the receipts and all of that stuff available. It's probably gonna get brought up. It doesn't have to be, but it could quite possibly get brought up inside of the, in the inspection process. You're gonna wanna have that stuff available to you, to the buyers, okay? So again, all of this is to ensure that everybody has a quality experience, that the inspection is thorough and timely, that we don't have to return to the properties for any reasons. So this requires a collective effort. We want to get those things and areas prepared and ready for the inspection before we get to the property, not after we get there. Once we're at the property, everything is inspected as is. If the electrical panel is blocked, in all likelihood, we're not going to bring it up. We're just going to inspect it. This is the time we're bringing it up, all right? If the water heater is blocked, or the furnace is blocked, or the attic is blocked, or the crawl space is blocked, we're not going to bring it up. We're just simply going to document the condition of the home as it exists on the day of the inspection. That's what our job is, and we're just going to assume that people knew and were prepared for this ahead of time because we've made this video and we've produced these documents. So please take these things seriously. We inspect homes every week where one or more of the items that I've listed here are skipped, essentially, because we can't get to them. So make sure these things are done. Everyone will have a quality experience, and there won't be any hiccups or hang-ups, and we'll have to come back to the home and essentially charge more to come back. We don't want to have to do that. You'll find some additional resources perhaps in the links below this video. We do again appreciate everybody taking this seriously, and look forward to helping you. Thanks.